Everyone, Alodar here. This is going to be a response to, I guess, Blizzard's announcement for the Season of Mastery Classic Fresh servers that they're going to be launching, apparently. This news came out yesterday, and a lot of people in my chat have asked me what I think of this, and I thought I'd just do kind of an on the cuff video about my thoughts on the way that they're going to launch this. I'm gonna start off straight off the top by saying that I'm not impressed. This is actually, I guess other people maybe find this good direction. I think it's pretty poor. I think it's not in the direction that Classic should be going. I don't think that this is a very good way to focus the game in accordance with the spirit of Classic World of Warcraft. And I'll explain. I just had basically a quick glance over what they were planning on doing. So I'm going to read through it and comment on it. I'm sure you've seen a lot of other videos where they literally read off the entire message verbatim. I'm sure you've already done that. You don't need me to do that here in this video. So I'm just going to cut to the chase and go over what they're talking about here. So the first thing that they're talking about is how they're going to release the content in 6 phases in a 12-month season, so that each phase, I guess you would assume, is maybe about 2 months long. It doesn't actually say each phase is going to be 2 months long, but 12 divided by 6 on average is going to be 2 months long. I suppose one phase could be a little bit longer or a little bit shorter to make more room for another phase, i.e. AQ40, Nax, Ramus, etc. But based on what they've told us, 12 months is for the average gamer is going to be far too short. Now you may be listening to this video and saying, "What are you talking about? I think I could get through this content in 12 months and my guild could clear Nax Ramus." I think I could too, but I think the general population would not be able to do that. And you've got to understand that the vast majority of players are not like us who can play for 12 or 16 hours a day if we so chose. They've got jobs, they've got lives, they've got kids, they've got all these other things. And if they're cut out of being able to do a good chunk of this content and they realize it early on, that means massive amounts of players are going to leave the game and the game is going to feel dead and fail very quickly. So those of us that are choosing to rush through the game need to understand that and need to understand that the game isn't meant for those players that rush through the game. It's meant for players that can basically take their time. So if you choose to get to level 60 in 4 days and are fully prepared to run Molten Core and have it cleared on day 6, and then you're complaining that there's no content for you, that's basically your own fault, my own fault. Anyways, so I think number one, the 12-month season is way too short. The average player is probably going to get to level 60 after about a month. And then a month later, Dire Maul comes out. And then, 2 months after that, Blackwing Lair comes out. That means that they're probably only going to be able to run Molten Core, a handful of times. They're not going to have anywhere near their gear. And even if they get carried into Blackwing Lair, they're going to be so far behind on gear that by the time that AQ40 rolls around, they're not going to be able to catch up. And they're already going to fall. They're already going to be far too far behind. And you're going to have guilds literally telling people, "Listen, sorry, you're just not able to cut it with us. The content is going too fast for you." And a majority of the players are probably going to run into instances where they just can't keep up. I won't. I'll be able to play 12, 14 hours a day. I'll be able to keep up no problem. But the average player is just not simply going to be able to do that. And you're going to see a large chunk of the population just not able to participate. So I don't like the 12-month plan. Classic WoW was 22 months. In my opinion, even for the casual gamer, that was too long. But I think a happy medium would be around a year and a half, so about 18 months. So you could cut down each of the phases, each of the major phases, meaning the major raids, down by about a month. So that's basically what I would suggest that they do. Raid boss updates. They're talking about getting rid of world buffs. and having them disabled in raids. Now, many people have heard me say on stream many times before that I think world buffs make raiding a joke, and quite frankly, it does. I've heard a lot of people say on Twitter, "Oh, the hardcore raiding community, they need their speed running clears and stuff like that." Newsflash for you: you're probably not part of that hardcore community, the speed racing community. You may like to put up big numbers and all that sort of stuff, but unless you're part of the top 1% of guilds, you're not really part of that community either. So raid buffs are really just there making the content super easy. I find it kind of boring because it's really easy content to get through anyways. I like the idea of making the content harder. However, I don't know that I agree with removing world buffs, and I'm going to tell you why for a completely different reason. I myself love the idea of world PvP when it's guild on guild. Guilds roaming around and trying to find other guilds that are going to the raids, and wiping them out, clearing them out of the world buffs, all that sort of stuff. All that stuff we did in the beginning, like phase 1, phase 2, where guilds were hunkering down in Blackwing Lair to try and wipe out raids that were trying to get there. That's gone with this. They get rid of world buffs. All that excitement is gone. And for those of you that are like, yeah, but I want my world buffs in raids, there's PvE servers, man. You don't have to stay on a PvP server. And every time I say that to someone, they're like, oh, but the best guilds are on PvP servers. Well, tough luck. I mean, you got to take the good with the bad, right? Part of PvP servers is you've actually got a PvP, and there's risk and reward to that. So if you don't want to risk losing your world buffs to being out in the world and dying because somebody came by and killed you because they're better at PvP than you or whatever, then play on Peggle or play on some other PvE server. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're just that type of a player, just play on a PvE server. I don't know that I agree with getting rid of world buffs. I do understand to a degree people complaining that they have to raid log and stuff like that. And they bought in the Chrono Boon to try and solve that. I think the Chrono Boon is an absolutely terrible idea because, again, it cuts away from the reason to go out and do a lot of world PvP, wiping out other raids, killing people that have buffs, enemy guilds that are on the opposing faction, making sure that you try and wipe their raid out so they don't get to, they don't get to get the best clears, that sort of stuff. That wipes all that stuff out. And the idea that you can then take the Chrono Boon, save your buffs, and then take it to the raid and then apply it at the raid is a complete disaster for the game as far as I'm concerned. Now, if they took the Chrono Boon and made it such that you had to save the buffs, you could only save the buffs once you got back to town, and then you put it into the Chrono Boon, and then before you left for raid, you had to apply those buffs from town, I would probably actually be okay with that. Because it allows both parties to, you wouldn't have to raid log anymore. You could still play your character, all that sort of stuff, but it would keep that world PvP aspect alive. I just don't trust Blizzard to implement this properly, so that's the problem. Restoring mechanics were removed early on in some raid bosses. I don't mind that. Makes it more difficult. I'm fine with that. No boss debuff limit, up from 16 debuffs in WoW Classic. Well, that of course is going to make the boss fights easier. So in response to that, they're also said that they're going to increase health on bosses to offset players' buffs and the remove debuff limit. I think they should not only increase bosses' health, but they should also increase the damage that they do, possibly. Just my opinion, but increased health to offset the added damage that players are going to be doing. I understand that. Our intent with the changes is for this experience to feel somewhat more challenging than WoW Classic did in 2019. Okay. Again, I don't know that what they could do is make it such that the amount of added buffs that you get, or the added damage that you get from the rallying cry of the Dragon Slayer and other world buffs, the added damage that you get, that much extra damage is added to the health pool, perhaps, of the boss. And then if you die, it hurts even more. It makes the boss fights even that much tougher. maybe something like that, but it's to be seen. I'm not sure that I'm in full favor of disabling world buffs entirely. I just don't like the added things that it removes from the games. Not just it doesn't just make raiding harder. It also removes other aspects of the game, such as world PvP, stuff like that. So, um, and by world PvP that has consequences. Like if you die, you lose your world buffs. Killing somebody who is just someone else to kill, that's fine dandy, whatever. But when you see an enemy in a guild that you hate and you wipe them and the world buffs, that brings extra satisfaction. We're planning on increasing experience gains from what they were in the first iteration of WoW Classic. Our current plan is to set them close to one Burning Crusade with a bigger focus on Quest XP. Okay, I've sort of skimmed ahead as well. I see nothing here about doing something to remove bots. It's like they're completely skirting around the issue. Bots are a massive problem in this game. Boosting people is a massive issue in the game. The XP that you get from dungeons is a massive problem. So the easiest way to fix that is to take all the mob XP that you would normally get in a run and add it to the quests that you do in the dungeon itself. So let's say, for example, you have, what is there, five? I think it's five quests that you get for RFC. Maybe it's six, whichever. Let's say it's five. You add up all the mob XP, okay, and then add that to the quest XP that you would normally get. So remove it from the mobs and add it to the quests. That way, when you're running the dungeon once, you still get the same amount of XP as you normally would. But instead of running it over and over and over and over and over again to get the XP from the mobs, you've already got that experience of killing the mobs. You shouldn't get it a second time anyways, as far as I'm concerned. But you've still got the same amount of XP for running that dungeon the first time. You've done all the quests. You turn those quests in, and suddenly those quests are worth, say, twice as much XP because the added mob XP is added on top of your regular quest XP. That would be an easy way to solve the problem, but Blizzard just doesn't seem to really want to deal away with bots. I don't know why. It could be because bots are paid accounts. I mean, that might be something. Could that might be something to look at. Maybe it's because Blizzard doesn't actually want to get rid of bots, but bots are a huge problem, and they're completely skirting around the issue of bots here. Completely skirting around the issue of bots. That's a whole other video, and I don't want to get on a rant here because that's literally a whole nother video. Quality of life updates. In addition, we're planning to and introducing certain improvements. Okay, we'll just go through them quickly. Meeting stones converted to summoning stones. This is pretty much absurd. For any of you that have played TBC and you're sitting there going, man, TBC is kind of dull and it's boring. You know what it's like when you play on a bit of a dead server, you're roaming around, or perhaps you've been leveling in a character. You're actually leveling the character, doing quests out in the world. I know that's that might be something new for some people, but you're actually leveling using quests out in the world, and you don't see hardly anyone out in the world leveling at all anymore. That is essentially what this will turn into if there's summoning stones. Because no longer are people going to be roaming around the world to be looking for, to be bringing people in for raid. You've got warlocks to do that anyways. Trust me, I'm a warlock. We know what we sign up for when we're raiding. We have to go out and get stones to summon people. That's part of the job, okay? But summoning stones just allows people a way to curtail moving through the world. And again, this, number one, kills off world PvP. And number two, it also makes the world look dead. And if you've ever played on a dead server, it does not do much for the morale of people that are playing on the server because you feel like the game is dying. It literally looks dead. You can run through zones in TBC, which is apparently, pretty busy, but you don't see people around in zones quite often, because people are just getting summoned places. So the same thing is going to happen in Classic as well. The summoning stone idea is ridiculous. We don't need more summoning stones. We need to push people out into the world to have them move around in the world so the world is actually populated. Not just populated in town and then populated at a meeting stone and then always in an instance, whether it's a raid or a battleground or whatever. Like, you don't want those to be the only areas where there's actually people. The summoning stones is a ridiculous idea. It's not hard to travel yourself to a raid. Increase mining and herbalism nodes. I don't know that I'm a fan. Actually, I mean, this I guess helps, but you still have to deal with the bot issue. You've got bots that are traveling literally underground in order to get to these nodes way faster than anyone else can. Like, that's the major problem. Deal with the bots. Get rid of the bot problem, and a lot of this will solve itself. But they choose not to. Paid accounts, everyone. Realms tend to be more densely populated in WoW Classic compared to the original 2005 design. Increasing gathering node spawns should provide a more consistent economy this time around. I can understand that. Of these changes, this is the one that I hate the least. Okay. If there's any way that that's literally the only way I can put it. This is the one that I probably hate the least. WoW Classic Season Mastery will have an open beta beginning October 5th. I'll be trying the open beta, but I'm not a big fan of these, and for the reasons that I listed. And I'm sure that a lot of you might think one or two of these might be good ideas. World Buffs, for example, some might think is a good idea. But don't just look at it small picture like, oh, this only affects raids. It doesn't just affect raids. It affects a lot of other stuff that's going around in the world. A lot of people actually traveling around in the world, other things that people are wanting to do in the world. It affects a lot. It's not just how it affects the raids. So, anyways, that's basically my thoughts on this. I'm very kind of disappointed in the direction that Blizzard is actually looking to go here. Am I going to play the game? When I first heard about Fresh Classic, I was saying, yeah, I'll be playing it. But now that I've had a chance to kind of look over what they're planning on doing, it's something that I'd have to think about. But I'm really hoping Blizzard changes their mind on a few of these issues. And I know there's a lot of other classic content streamers, creators, whatever you might want to call them. A lot of them are concerned. I've been talking to a lot of them in Discord, a Discord that we all share, and there's a lot of people that are very, very upset. So anyways, that's just my thoughts on where I think this is going. I think it's a very bad start, and hopefully Blizzard changes their mind. That's all for this video, guys. If you want to talk more about Fresh Classic or any other MMOs, please feel free to contact me on my Twitter, Discord, or you can come join me on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Alodar. I stream 6 days a week. The link will be down below as well. Thanks a lot. You guys have a good day.